Attachment, traumas, patterns. How childhood shapes your affection. Have you ever wondered why you always choose emotionally unavailable people? Why does it sabotage relationships just when everything is going well? Or why does that feeling of abandonment paralyze you even for no apparent reason? The truth is brutal. You're not repeating patterns by chance. Your mind has been stuck in an invisible cycle programmed for decades. There is a scientific explanation for this. And it's hidden in the early years of your life, in moments that completely shaped how you love, trust, and connect today. In this video, I'm going to reveal the hidden mechanisms that control your effective choices without you realizing it. How your brain has created absolute truths about love and security that you automatically replicate in every relationship. And more importantly, how to identify which invisible pattern you carry and what to do to finally break it. What you're about to discover may explain years of failed relationships, unexplained anxiety attacks, and that constant feeling that something's wrong with you. Get ready, because after this video, you will never see yourself the same way again. 1. The invisible experiment. How you were programmed to love. It all starts much sooner than you think. For the first few years of his life, his brain was in extreme learning mode, absorbing every detail about how the world works. And the main lesson he needed to learn was how to survive through connections with other people. Every interaction, every emotional response you received was recorded like an instruction manual. A manual on what is safe, what is dangerous, and most importantly, how you should behave to receive love and attention. The fascinating thing is that this process happens completely unconsciously. No one taught you explicitly, but your brain came up with powerful conclusions. If when you cried someone came to calm you down consistently, you learned that the world is a safe place and that your needs matter. If sometimes they came and sometimes ignored you, you learned that love is unpredictable and that you need to fight for attention. If they rarely came, you learned that it's better not to need anyone. These conclusions turned into deep beliefs about relationships. And here's the problem. Your adult brain still operates on those beliefs formed when you were 2, 3, 4 years old. It's as if you're using a map drawn in preschool to navigate complex adult relationships. Neuroscience calls this neural programming. Your brain has created specific circuits, connections between neurons that fire automatically in effective situations. When somebody gets too close, when somebody moves away, when you need support, these old circuits are activated and you react according to that primitive manual. The most impressive thing is that it explains why you repeat the same mistakes. It's not a lack of intelligence or self-control. It's because your nervous system is literally programmed to respond in a specific way. That feeling that you can't avoid certain reactions, it is real. Your body is following instructions recorded decades ago. And there's more. This programming didn't just happen at the level of thought. It was registered on his body. That's why you feel that tightness in your chest when someone disappears for a few hours. That's why your stomach churns when you need to ask for help. That's why you freeze when someone shows real interest. They are automatic physical responses, not conscious choices. But here's the hopeful part. Understanding that you've been programmed is the first step to reprogramming yourself. When you recognize that your reactions are not who you are, but rather learned patterns, you gain the power of choice. You can start to question these old instructions and create new neural routes. The brain has an incredible capacity for change called neuroplasticity. You can literally rewrite your playbook on love and connection. But first, you need to understand which playbook you're following right now. 2. The 3 types of attachment and how to identify yours. There are 3 main ways to connect with other people, and each of them creates a completely different experience in relationships. Science has identified these patterns, and they explain behaviors that you probably recognize in yourself or the people around you. The first pattern is secure attachment. People with this type feel comfort in both closeness and independence. They can ask for help without feeling weak. They can give space without feeling abandoned, and they deal with conflicts without panicking. For them, relationships are a safe haven, not a minefield. They trust that people will be there when needed, but they don't depend on that presence to feel whole. About 50% of the population has this pattern. The second pattern is anxious attachment. If you have this type, relationships are an emotional roller coaster. You feel an intense need for closeness and constant validation. When the person takes a long time to respond to a message, their brain already creates 10 abandonment scenarios. You need a lot of reassurance that you are loved and wanted. Small signs of distancing put you on high alert. You may find yourself checking your phone compulsively, analyzing every word, every comma in the messages. Closeness calms you down temporarily, but it never feels enough for long. The third pattern is avoidant attachment. If this is yours, you value your independence a lot and feel suffocated easily. Deep emotional intimacy makes you uncomfortable. You may like the person, but when they want more closeness, you feel an impulse to back off. Long-term commitment scares you. You prefer to maintain a certain emotional distance, even in serious relationships. You need a lot of personal space and may find people too picky. You pride yourself on not needing anyone, but deep down you can feel lonely. How to identify yours? Think about your past relationships. When there is conflict, do you seek to resolve it by talking or do you walk away? When the person shows interest, do you approach or feel like running away? Do you need constant confirmation that you are loved? Or would you rather not need anyone? Your natural responses, not what you think you should do, reveal your pattern. Many people have characteristics of more than one type, especially if they have lived through very inconsistent situations. You can be anxious with emotionally distant people and avoidant with people who are very attached. This is called disorganized attachment and is the most complex of all. Here's the crux of the point. None of these patterns are your permanent personality. These are emotional survival strategies that you have developed. The anxious person has learned that he needs to fight for attention. The avoidant has learned that it is safer not to have to. And these strategies made sense at some point. The problem is when they continue to operate in contexts where they are no longer needed, sabotaging connections that could be healthy. If you want to understand how your childhood still shapes your relationships and emotional patterns, discover the Jung Method, link pinned in the first comment. 3. Why you always choose who hurts you. There is a cruel pattern that many people experience. You meet someone amazing, available, who treats you well, but you don't feel that chemistry. Then someone distant, complicated, emotionally unavailable appears, and you feel a magnetic attraction. Why? The answer lies in the concept of emotional familiarity. Your brain has been programmed to recognize certain emotional patterns like love or connection. If you grew up in an unpredictable environment where you had to fight for attention, your brain associated that struggle with intimacy. So when you meet someone stable and consistent, something seems to be missing. There is not that drama, that intensity, that need to conquer. It seems boring because it doesn't activate the same neural circuits that your brain has learned to call love. On the other hand, when you meet someone who is inconsistent, who sometimes pays attention to you and sometimes ignores you, your brain recognizes this pattern. It's familiar, and familiarity is interpreted by the brain as security, even when logically you know it's not. That's why you find yourself saying things like, "I know he's no good, but I feel something strong." This strong something is the neural recognition of an old pattern. There's more. There is a phenomenon called compulsive repetition. Your unconscious tries to recreate painful situations from the past in hopes of finally resolving them. It's as if a part of you thinks, if I can get this emotionally unavailable person to love me, I'll finally prove that I'm worthy of love. You're trying to fix old wounds through new people, but it never works because the problem isn't in them, it's in the unresolved wound. There is also the issue of dopamine. Unpredictable relationships create spikes in dopamine in the brain, the same neurotransmitter involved in addictions. When the person finally responds after ignoring you, you feel a real chemical euphoria. This intermittent reward system is extremely addictive, much more so than a consistent reward. It is the same principle as casino machines. You may also be operating under limiting beliefs about yourself. If deep down you believe that you don't deserve to be happy or that you're not worthy of unconditional love, you'll unconsciously choose people who confirm that belief. It's more comfortable for the brain to confirm its existing beliefs than to challenge them. So you choose people who treat you badly because it validates what you already believe about yourself. The good news is that recognizing this pattern is half the solution. When you realize that you're being attracted to someone because it activates your wounds, not because it's a healthy connection, you gain power of choice. You can start to consciously choose differently, even if it seems awkward at first. Over time, your brain can learn new patterns of attraction based on real safety and reciprocity, not painful familiarity. 4. The trauma you don't know you have. When we talk about trauma, most people think of dramatic events, accidents, violence, terrible losses. But there is a type of trauma that goes completely unnoticed, and it is precisely this that affects relationships the most. It's the traumas of emotional neglect, the repeated little wounds that no one has validated as important. Maybe you've never experienced anything you consider traumatic, but you still carry clear symptoms. Difficulty trusting, intense fear of abandonment, a sense of emptiness, difficulty identifying your own emotions. These symptoms don't come out of nowhere. They are a result of emotional needs that have not been met consistently. Relational trauma happens when you needed to suppress parts of yourself in order to be accepted. When he learned that certain emotions were not welcome. When their needs have been minimized repeatedly. When you had no one to count on in difficult times. It doesn't have to be obvious abuse. It may simply be the absence of something essential, emotional validation, attentive presence, security to express vulnerability. The problem with these subtle traumas is that you don't have a clear memory of them. There is no specific event to point to and say, this is where it all began. That's why many people think they have no reason for their emotional difficulties. They compare their story with more dramatic ones and conclude that they shouldn't be feeling what they feel. But trauma is not competition. Your pain is valid, regardless of whether there are worse cases. These invisible traumas create what we call attachment wounds. These are specific sensitivities that trigger in relationships. For some, it's the fear of being abandoned, a visceral sense that people are leaving. For others, it is the fear of being engulfed, of losing their identity in a relationship. For many, it is the deep belief that they are not worthy of love, that if one really knew them, one would run away. The body keeps these wounds even when the mind doesn't remember. That's why you can have disproportionate reactions to small situations. Someone cancels a date and you feel a despair that doesn't make sense rationally. Someone asks for space and you go into a total panic. Someone gets too close and you want to run away. These are traumatic responses, not normal reactions. Your nervous system is reviving an old threat. The good news about relational trauma is that it can be healed through healthy relationships. Your brain can learn new safety patterns. But this requires two things. First, recognizing and validating your own wounds and stopping minimizing them. Second, seek connections with people who are consistent, reliable, and emotionally available, even if at first it seems uncomfortable or boring. Healing happens when you have repeated experiences of safety that contradict your old traumatic beliefs. 5. Relationship anxiety, the root that no one told you. Anxiety in relationships is not just insecurity or lack of confidence, as many think. It is a nervous system response based on experiences where the connection was unpredictable. His body learned that closeness can disappear at any moment, so he developed a hypersensitive alert system. When you have relational anxiety, your brain is constantly scanning for danger signs. Did the person take 15 minutes longer to respond? Red alert. Was she less affectionate today? Red alert. Did she mention needing some alone time? Red alert. Your nervous system interprets subtle changes as existential threats because at some point in your life, subtle changes actually preceded loss or abandonment. This creates a vicious cycle. The more anxious you get, the more you seek reassurance. But reassurance only calms down temporarily, because the problem is not in the current situation, it is in the faulty alarm system in your brain. So you need more and more confirmations. This can push away the very person you're trying to keep close to, confirming your fears and reinforcing the pattern. The root of this lies in experiences where you couldn't count on the consistent presence of someone important. It taught your brain that people are unpredictable and that you need to be always vigilant. It can also be related to situations where their emotional needs have been met inconsistently. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, without a clear pattern. This unpredictability is even more traumatic to the brain than consistent rejection. because you never know what to expect. There is an important physical component here. Relational anxiety activates your sympathetic nervous system, the fight-or-flight response. When you feel like you might lose someone, your body reacts as if it's in real physical danger. Heart races, breath becomes short, thoughts become obsessive. It's not exaggerated or dramatic, it's an inappropriate survival response activated in the wrong context. Many people with relational anxiety develop compensatory behaviors. They constantly check the person's social networks. They need to know where she is at all times. They avoid conflicts for fear of pushing the person away. Or the opposite. They create conflicts to test whether the person will stay. They agree to things they don't want just to please. They lose their own identity trying to be what they think the person wants. The way to overcome this is not simply to trust more or be more sure of yourself. These phrases don't help because they ignore the neurological root of the problem. The solution involves regulating your nervous system through specific practices, grounding techniques that bring you into the present moment, body work that releases stored tension, and most importantly, corrective experiences where you gradually learn that not all change is a threat. 6. When to run away is your standard of protection. If you have a pattern of moving away when someone gets too close, there is a neurological reason for this. At some point, proximity was interpreted as danger, perhaps because intimacy was accompanied by invasion, control, or stifling expectations. Your brain has created an association. Emotional closeness means loss of autonomy, so it protects you by making you retreat. This pattern usually manifests itself in subtle ways. You may want a serious relationship, but when it becomes real, you start to notice flaws in the person. Little things that didn't bother you now seem unbearable. You feel a weight on your chest when she wants more time together. You get irritated when she expresses emotional needs. You think about breaking up for no clear reason. What's happening is that your window of tolerance for intimacy is being crossed. Your nervous system is going into threat mode. The automatic response is to create distance, physical or emotional. You can do this by breaking up, cheating, picking fights, burying yourself at work, or simply shutting down emotionally while continuing in the relationship. The root of this pattern often lies in experiences where their needs for autonomy have been disregarded, where you didn't have room to be yourself, where love came accompanied by conditions and expectations, where you needed to emotionally care for someone when in fact you should be taking care of. This taught your brain that relationships mean losing yourself. There is also a mechanism of emotional self-preservation. If you walk away before the person has a chance to leave you, you maintain control. It is better to leave than to be left. So unconsciously, you sabotage relationships before they get to the point where you could get hurt. You shut down when you're still in a position of power, before you're too vulnerable. The paradox is that people with this pattern often want deep connection, but are terrified of it at the same time. There is a part that wants intimacy, and another that needs to run away from it. This creates a constant internal conflict. You can even choose anxious partners because the chase dynamic allows you to keep your distance while you're still technically in a relationship. Often, this pattern is confused with a lack of love or commitment, but it is not. You may love the person deeply and still need to run away. The problem is not the ability to love, it is the ability to tolerate intimacy without going into survival mode. And this has a solution when you understand that the danger your brain detects is not real. You won't lose your identity or autonomy in a healthy relationship. Transformation begins when you recognize these escape impulses as learned protective responses, not truths about relationships. You can gradually learn to tolerate more closeness without feeling like you're losing yourself. But this requires constant awareness and a willingness to be temporarily uncomfortable, rather than following the automatic urge to run. 7. Breaking the cycle. Is it possible to reprogram your brain? The answer is yes, but not in the magical way that many self-help gurus promise. There's no quick exercise or affirmation that will undo years of neural programming. Change is possible, but it requires understanding how the brain actually works and working with it, not against it. The main concept here is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to create new neural connections and weaken old ones. You are not doomed to the patterns you have learned, but creating new neural pathways requires consistent repetition of new experiences. A single good experience does not erase an established pattern. You need multiple remedial experiences over time. The first step is awareness. You need to recognize your patterns in action. When you're about to sabotage something good, when you're going into panic mode for a small reason, when you're choosing someone unavailable again. Without awareness, you simply repeat automatically. With awareness, you create a space between the trigger and the response, where choice becomes possible. The second step is regulation of the nervous system. Your patterns are not just mental, they are physical. Your body stores these answers. So you need to work on the body level as well. This may include breathing practices, grounding exercises, physical movement, or somatic techniques that release stored tension. When your nervous system is regulated, you can make more conscious choices. The third step, and perhaps the most important, is real corrective experiences. Your brain needs to learn through experience, not just intellectual understanding. This means putting yourself in situations that challenge your old beliefs, even if they are uncomfortable. If you have an anxious pattern, that means tolerating not receiving immediate reassurance and realizing that the world has not ended. If you have an avoidant pattern, it means staying in moments of intimacy, even when you want to escape, and realizing that you haven't lost yourself. Healthy relationships are powerful tools for healing. When you experience consistency, trusted presence, respect for your needs, and unconditional love, your brain begins to rewrite your beliefs about relationships. But this requires that you consciously choose emotionally healthy people, not the familiar ones that activate your old patterns. Specialized therapy can greatly speed up this process. Approaches such as attachment-focused therapy, EMDR, or somatic therapy work specifically with these deep patterns. A therapist can offer a safe corrective relationship where you practice new behaviors in a controlled environment. It is important to have realistic expectations. Profound change takes time. You may have relapses into old patterns, especially under stress. This doesn't mean you failed. It means the brain goes back to the familiar when it's overloaded. The key is to keep practicing the new patterns consistently. Over time, the new neural pathways strengthen and the old ones weaken. 8. The first step to healthy relationships. After understanding all this complexity about attachment, trauma, and patterns, you may be wondering, where to start? The first step may seem counterintuitive, but it's key. A healthy relationship starts with yourself, not finding the right person. Most people believe that they will feel complete when they meet someone special. But the truth is the opposite. You need to develop a healthy relationship with yourself first. This means learning to regulate your own emotions without depending on someone else. It means developing self-compassion instead of self-criticism. It means identifying your needs and learning to meet them, at least partially, on your own. This is not selfishness. It is emotional responsibility. When you go into a relationship expecting the other person to heal your wounds, you're putting an impossible burden on them. No partner can fill voids that only you can fill. No external love can make up for the lack of self-love. You will simply drain the person and repeat their patterns. Another crucial step is to do the inner work of identifying your specific wounds. Not in an abstract way, but concretely. What exactly triggers you? What situations make you panic? What kind of behavior in the other makes you react disproportionately? These are clues to your sensitive areas. When you map out your wounds, you can communicate them to a potential partner and consciously work on them. You also need to learn how to differentiate between real connection and chemical activation. That intense sense of chemistry that makes you obsess over someone is often just neural recognition of a familiar, often dysfunctional, pattern. Real connection is calmer. It is to feel comfortable, safe, seen. It may not have that intense drama, but it has consistency and reciprocity. Setting healthy boundaries is another essential step. Many people with insecure standards either have no limits, accepting any treatment for fear of losing the person, or have walls, keeping everyone at a distance. Healthy boundaries are flexible. You protect your fundamental needs but remain open to connection. You can say no without guilt and yes without resentment. It is also important to reevaluate your partner choices. If you're always attracted to people who are emotionally unavailable, complicated, or who treat you badly, you need to consciously choose differently. This will seem strange at first. Healthy people can seem boring because they don't activate their family drama system. But with time, you can train your brain to recognize security as attractive. Seeking professional help is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of self-awareness. If you find that your patterns are sabotaging your life over and over again, therapy is an investment in yourself. A good therapist can help you see blind spots that you alone can't see and guide you through the process of change. Finally, be patient with yourself. You carry patterns that have been developed over years. They won't disappear overnight. There will be moments of frustration where you fall into the same mistakes. But every time you recognize the pattern, even if you can't change it at that moment, you're planting a seed of change. With consistency and self-compassion, you can create truly healthy and fulfilling relationships.